StrayAllDay.com.
Now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unified philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is 3 ways to condition the subconscious mind. I'm going to tell you why you need these 3 ways and the value of doing so in a moment. First, let me tell you 2 housekeeping things. Number 1, daily motivation and Monday motivation text messages that go out every day and every week, respectively, guaranteed to have you focused, sharp, and on point. Guaranteed, coming straight from me. Take my word for it. All you got to do to get these, be in my text community, and to do that, all you got to do is join by texting me at my number 305-384-6894. When we have those messages going out again, as of the recording of this episode, they're not, but when they are, you will immediately get a response from our message bot letting you know that you are verified and confirmed and all of that. Then you can choose how often you want to receive our messages. When we get those going again, that's how it's going to go. So right now, if you send a text, you won't get a response, but we are logging and keeping everybody's information. And once we get it technically fixed and everything running the way we want it to, then you'll be getting that message and those messages moving forward. So just text that number. Secondly, Work on Your Game University. That's the place where all of my coaching takes place. If you want to join our coaching program, if you like to have me as your direct coach, there is one way to make that happen. All you got to do is go over to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That link's down below in the description to this episode, wherever you are listening to this, whether you're listening on audio only, or you're listening on, or you're watching on video, you can just scroll down to the description of wherever you're consuming this and see the link, workonyourgameuniversity.com, or you just type it into your favorite browser and it will take you straight to the page where you can see everything we're doing in the university and how you can get started. Link down below. All right, all that out the way, let's get into the topic. 3 ways of conditioning the subconscious mind. Now, I talk about the subconscious mind a lot in all of my material. I wrote a whole book on it called The Mental Workbook. If you don't have that book, just go to thirddaybook.com, go through the sales funnel, and there's a book there called The Mental Workbook and the Mental Game Super Duper Bundle, along with my book, Work on Your Game, 30 Days of Discipline and Bulletproof Mindset. You get those 4 books together as a bundle. The Mental Workbook is one of those 4 books. I wrote the whole book on the Mental Workbook, explaining the concept of the subconscious and how it works and why it is so important. I'm going to talk a little bit about that here in the introduction. And what I'm going to give you here today is a primer on the key ways to start controlling the subconscious mind. Now, the reason why controlling the subconscious mind matters so much is because our subconscious programming controls 85% of our thoughts, words, and actions. Most of what we do is controlled by our subconscious programming. And when I say 85%, I'm actually being a little bit modest here. I was just reading someone, I can't remember who I was reading today, but they were saying it's more closer to 90%. And some people say it's damn near everything. So our conscious thoughts are the thoughts that you can tell yourself to think. So if I tell you to think of an elephant right now, that's a conscious thought that you're having in your mind. Or if I tell you, hey, go look up the score from the LA Lakers game yesterday, you can have that thought happen in your conscious mind. The subconscious mind is the programming that has already been done, and it controls most of what we do because it's part of the automatic response system. And our automatic responses control much more of what we do than the responses that we consciously think about we are doing. So in other words, most of what we do is by habit. Most of it is by programming. And if we want to change our habits, then what we can do is start consciously thinking about how we want those habits to change. And then we can do the work to change our programming, change our habitual wiring, which will lead to us changing our actions, which will lead to changing of our outcomes. So that's why this matters so much, because anytime that we're faced with any outside stimulus, our subconscious programming is in control of how we respond to the outside stimulus, not what we are consciously thinking about. So with all that out the way, now that you understand the value of subconscious programming, I'm going to tell you how to start programming your subconscious mind, because what is going on in your subconscious is much more important than anything that you consciously in the moment, just because maybe you read something, heard something, watched something. More important than anything you think about in those situations. Point number 1 is repetition. Repetition is the mother of all learning, and repetition is also the mother of all skill. All right, so anything that you want to learn, any skill you would like to develop, repetition is the quickest and most effective way to do it. Any of you who has ever played a sport, for example, this is not limited to sports, but any of you who has played a sport, you understand the value of repetition, because in sports we do drills, and the drill just means taking some activity or some behavior or some movement and doing it over and over and over again, with the caveat that you're doing it the right way until you basically can't get it wrong. You're basically mastering the skill by doing a certain movement over and over and over again. That's a drill. So, for example, in basketball, when you were first learning, you probably dribbled the basketball a whole lot, basic dribbling movements, just so you can get used to you can build what we call muscle memory of dribbling the basketball the right way. So someone like myself who did that for years and hasn't picked up a basketball in about a decade, I can pick up a basketball right now and dribble it better than 97% of human beings, because I spent so many years doing it that it became part of my muscle memory. I'm not going to be as sharp as I was when I stopped playing, but I'm still going to be pretty damn good because I did the drill so many times, the repetition. Any skill, as a matter of fact, this is not limited to sports. I'm just using sports as an example. It was the first thing that came to mind, but you can use this if any of you has worked as a chef. Let's say you worked in the kitchen and you did a lot of cooking. You have done, maybe you weren't doing it as a drill, but you did it so many times. Anything you do so many times is like doing a drill, even if you're not doing it intentionally as a drill. This becomes a normal muscle memorized action. For example, tying your shoes. I don't know if any of you ever did a shoe tying drill. Let me just tie my shoes 100 times in a row. I don't think any of us has ever done that, but we tied our shoes so many times that it became a natural behavior to where the next time you tie your shoes, you probably don't consciously think about the fact that you're doing it, and you don't have to think about it, and you do it well without thinking. All right, that's what happens when you do something by repetition. So it's the mother, anything you want to learn, the mother of it is doing it over and over and over again until you can't mess it up. So anything you would like to deeply impress on your subconscious mind, the most important thing you can do is repetition. So think about music, any song that you've listened to over and over again, or any person who you heard say something over and over again, or anything that you have personally said over and over again. That repetition kind of bakes it into the subconscious to where somebody could just say the first half of that sentence and you can say the second half simply because you heard it so many times or you've said it so many times. All right, that's what happens when you practice things. This is one of the reasons why when I talk to people about the skill of public speaking, if you want to get good at public speaking, one of the best things you can do is prepare. And how do you prepare? By over and over and over again, repeating what you're going to say to yourself in practice so that you are so ready for it when it comes time to do the actual performance. You already done it so many times that you're less nervous. I won't say it's nothing to be nervous about, but you're less nervous. And again, your favorite song, you listen to it so many times that now you know the words. You don't need the track playing in the background for you to sing the song because you listen to it so much that you know it. So any material you want to impress on the brain, let's say if you were taking a test or you're getting ready for an exam, what do? You study. What happens when you're studying for a test? If you're really studying and you actually ended up doing well on the test, what do? You went over the material over and over again. So I'm giving you all these examples of repetition that you already done in your own life and how things get impressed on the subconscious mind. So you can go over material over and over again. So when you take a test, I'm talking about a school type of test where you're not allowed to look at the documentation. You have the information burned on your brain because you've gone over it so many times. So there are things that you know how to do in your life that, again, you don't have to think about them because you have the repetition just by activity knowledge. Again, you didn't even have to try to teach it to yourself. Just when you keep doing the same thing over and over again, the subconscious mind eventually gets to the point and it takes over the task to where it becomes unconscious. I already mentioned tying your shoes. I will mention now driving a car. Any routine tasks that you do at home or at your job. Think about something like brushing your teeth or putting your clothes on. You've done them so many times that you don't consciously think while you're doing them, but you're doing them, and you're doing them usually flawlessly. So after you do it so much, the subconscious mind gets the point and it says, okay, I'll take that task off your hands so you don't have to think about it anymore. And then you do it. This is all based on repetition. So building repetition into any skill that you want to get good at is a really good idea. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is how to program the subconscious mind. Number 2 is emotionalization. In the Law of Success and also Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill talks about how any thought that is either repeated often enough, which we just discussed in point number 1, or it is sufficiently emotionalized, gets burned onto the subconscious mind. So you can, let's say a strong emotional charge to an experience, thought, or a situation. That's what we'll call emotionalization. That makes a strong impression on the subconscious mind without the repetition. You don't even have to have it, you don't even have to go through it over and over and over again. You can have something happen to you one time, or you experience something one time with a strong enough emotional charge, and it makes a deep impression on the subconscious mind just with one experience. So any event that, again, affects you enough emotionally, you don't have to do it 30 times or 10 times or 1,000 times. Just one time can be enough. For example, any of you who's ever been in a car accident where someone was badly injured, maybe even you, or maybe somebody passed away. That probably wasn't you since you're listening to me right now. That situation can affect you for the rest of your life in very deep emotional ways, even though you only went through the car accident once. It's not like you got to get in a car accident 3 times a day for your subconscious mind to understand that it mattered to you. So just that one situation. And everyone listening to me can think of some deeply emotionalized experiences that you've had in your life. Maybe it's the birth of a child. Maybe it's something that happened in your life that made you really angry or really sad or really happy. Whatever it is, you didn't have to go through it 50 times. You could have had it happen one time. And it was a big experience in your life that you'll never forget. And you can paint the picture in your mind of exactly how it went. You can tell the story over and over again, even though you only went through it one time. This is what it means. This is what I mean when I say an emotionalized experience. It affects the way you think. It changes everything about your underlying wiring just with one time, one repetition. So anybody who's been through any sort of trauma, again, one time is enough. This can also work in a positive form, but also work in a negative form. So the subconscious mind does not care what it is given; it will act on a highly emotionalized experience, regardless of whether you feel good about it or you feel bad about it. When you have an emotional experience that you feel good or bad about, and again, this is a decision that you make based on how you decide to react and how you decide to frame it and the story you decide to tell yourself about what you've experienced. That's how you determine whether, or that's how the subconscious mind rather determines how important this thing is. It determines how important something is and whether it is allowed into the subconscious mind's home, so to speak, based on the labels and the stories that you give the experiences that you have. So both of us could experience the exact same thing. And for you, it is highly traumatizing or highly emotionally charged, and it affects you for the rest of your life because of whatever it was. Whereas I could look at it and have the same experience. And maybe in the moment, though it has my attention the same way it had your attention, but when it's over, I kind of downgrade it in my mind and say, okay, that wasn't really a big thing. I mean, it happened and it did occur, but it doesn't really matter that much to me. And I don't allow it to get into my subconscious mind because I'm putting the story around it, the frame around it, that it wasn't that big of a deal. But if you put the frame around it that it was huge and it was a life altering situation, well, it will affect your subconscious. And it doesn't make either of us right or wrong. It's just I'm giving you that example to help you understand that the frame and the story that you put around your own life experiences play a huge role in how much they affect you or don't affect you moving forward. Because if you give yourself the story that that was nothing, well, you'll forget about it. A year from now, you won't even remember that it happened. But if you give yourself the story that it was a big deal, well, you'll always remember it. And whoever else was involved, they could completely forget about it. So this is all choice. That's the great thing about anything that's mental, everybody, is that things, of course, things happen to us, all of us in life, but we have 100% choice over how we decide to label things and whether or not they will affect us moving forward after it's over. Negative emotions, as a general rule, however, I should add, they tend to travel through to the subconscious faster and stronger than positive emotions, but they do both have the effect. But negative emotions tend to get through a little bit more easily. So be careful with any highly emotionalized situations that you label as negative because they tend to pass through very quickly and very easily, and it's a little bit more work with the positive emotions. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is how to program the subconscious mind. Number 3 is immersion. Immersion means putting yourself in a situation where you are surrounded by a certain type of energy, certain type of person, or a certain way of thinking. Thus, making it difficult for you to think in any different way because you're surrounded by this energy, which is what you want when you are trying to create change. So creating change is a good thing. I mean, immersion is a good thing if you're looking to create change. In other words, you want to surround yourself in such a way, environmentally, this can be mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, any way, that it's pretty difficult for you to have any feelings or thoughts outside of whatever the environment that you are immersed in is offering. So that can make a deep impact on your subconscious, again, without you having to go through it a million times. Maybe not, maybe more than once, maybe longer than the one time, like the car crash, or one time of somebody of you seeing your child being born. It might be a longer immersion than that, than it's the moment that it takes for that to happen. But that immersion is not something you have to do every single day. You can immerse yourself in something for a month, and it can make a big impact on your subconscious mind for the rest of your life. So, what are some examples of immersions? This is something that some people try to do in some conferences and some events. Not all events are like this. My events are not this type, but there are events that are this type where they want to completely immerse you, excuse me. So you think about a Tony Robbins event, any of you who's ever been to one or you've heard about them. That's what Tony Robbins looks to do. He actually says it out of his mouth. This is going to be a full immersion. I'm going to immerse you over the next 4 days for like 15 hours a day. And that's literal. That's not a joke. 15 hours a day. You're going to be in this environment, and I'm going to immerse you in this energy and this spirit of whatever it is that he's teaching. Of, I don't know, what do we call it? Personal growth, transformation, motivation, whatever you call what he does. But that's a form of immersion. In some religious sects, there are immersion camps. They may not call them immersion camps, but that's what it is. They immerse you, and this could be for kids, it could be for young adults, it could be for fully grown adults. So you immerse yourself in that energy to where you aren't thinking about or looking at anything else. You're only immersed in that energy. And this is one of the ways that they start to program your subconscious mind for with whatever it is that they're teaching. Anybody who's been in the military, when you go through basic training, or so I've heard, this is a form of immersion. You are immersed in it. And one of the things I heard a military guy talking about this once. He said, when you go into the training for the military, one of the first things they want to do is subconsciously strip you of the idea of the outside independent person who you've been up to this point. And this could be if you're, well, I guess the military has a certain age range, but they strip you of the identity that you came in with. They tear that apart, and then they implant the identity of you being one of us, one of these members of our military. I'm talking about American military, but I would guess that all militaries have a similar process. The whole point is to immerse you to where you can't think about or do anything outside of what they want you to do, and they are programming you to have a certain mindset, because that's, I guess, based on their knowledge, this is the best practice to help you be best prepared to serve them in whatever way you have pledged to serve. These are all forms of immersion. All right, so whatever type of energy you're getting around, it will help create the change when you're immersed in it. So immerse yourself in anything, it will make an impact on your subconscious mind. It's what I talked about in my episode on the 48-hour experiment. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But if you, if anyone you know has ever been in, let's say, a drug rehab program, that's another example. You immerse yourself in an environment where you couldn't access the drug and you only had access to material that is trying to unteach you about being a drug addict. Why is that? Because the immersion helps change your subconscious mind permanently, even though you only had to go through the immersion experience one time. That experience might be 3 months. That experience might be a week. But the whole point of it is to keep you from having to do anything over and over and over again, because they do add repetition after. After you get out, what do they have? They have programs where you can go to the meetings, right? You can go to the Drug Addicts Anonymous meeting, even after you're out of the program where you are immersed. Now you go to the meetings for what? For the repetition of staying on track. All right, so you see how these can be combined. These can be combined. You can combine these things if you want to program the subconscious mind. That might be a clue for many of you who want to program your subconscious quickly. If you do all three of these together: repetition, emotion, and immersion, all at the same time. So in a drug rehab program or any alcohol, gambling, sex rehab program, the point is immersion. Again, at some conferences, they are designed as full immersions to give you certain energies and certain behaviors, all to alter your behavior, your permanent behavior, a permanent alteration of behavior only in 3 or 4 days. It doesn't take a whole year or anything like that. So the effect doesn't always last, but the idea is that the effect will last. The good thing about immersion, folks, is that you can do it by yourself. You don't need anyone's help to immerse yourself. You just have to make some conscious choices about what you're going to immerse yourself in and what that entails. What can't come in if you're going to be immersed in this space. And again, I told you I was going to mention this. I did my episode on the life-changing 48-hour experiment. It is literally an immersion in a certain type of thinking. So you can immerse yourself just by your thoughts. You can just say, okay, I usually listen to rap music. So you know what? For the next 2 days, I'm only going to listen to gospel music. And see how that changes your subconscious. See how it changes your energy. You can try it. Life-changing 48-hour experiment. All right, there's a reason why I gave you that. Let me tell you the episode number there. So any of you who has not listened to that, I believe it was episode number, I won't even guess. It was episode number 2023. And that episode is all about how do you immerse yourself in only positive thinking for 48 hours straight. Now, some of you might think, well, that sounds pretty simple. I beg to differ. It is not simple. Actually, it is simple. It's not easy. Try to go 48 hours straight while thinking only positive thoughts. And then let me know when you fail the first 5 times. I challenge anyone listening to this. Go 48 hours straight, only thinking positive thoughts, and let me know when you fail the first 5 times. It won't take but 3 hours for you to fail 5 times trying this. You won't be able to do it. So that's why I call it life-changing, because it sounds so easy, but very few people are capable of pulling this off. So try it. Life-changing 48-hour experiment. It's all about 48 hours straight, only positive thoughts. And you'll realize how quickly negative thoughts pop into your brain, because that's part of your subconscious wiring. You fix that, you fix everything. Everybody heard that? All right, the challenge with self-immersion, folks, is that you have to actively fight against all the outside agents in your life that are fighting for your attention when you're doing it on your own. See, when you get in someone else's space of immersion, they kind of set that up for you. So if you're going to do it on your own, it's not easy, but it is possible. Recapping today's class, which is 3 ways to condition the subconscious mind. Told you why this is important, because the subconscious controls most of our actions, reactions, thoughts, words, and behavior. It's not our conscious thoughts, it's the subconscious. So that's why we got to program the subconscious the way we want it to be, so that it works the way we need it to work. Number 1, repetition. It's the mother of all learning, mother of all skill. Anything you want to get good at, do it over and over and over again on purpose, and then you'll start doing it without thinking about it. Number 2, emotionalization. A strong emotional charge to a situation can make a life-altering change to your subconscious thought patterns, even with only one exposure and one experience. And number 3, immersion. This means completely covering yourself in a certain energy, space, environment, etc., to the exclusion of everything else. So, and this whole point of immersion is to program your mind in a short period of time, instead of you needing to take months or years to make the change happen. And ideally, here's a secret: combine all 3 of these: repetition, emotionalization, and immersion, and you will make a huge impact on your subconscious mind. You just have to, again, you have to start this with a conscious thought, doing it on purpose, which is very difficult to do, because you'll notice that there are a lot of other things vying for your conscious attention. But as soon as you're able to pull this off, you'll start to make changes to your subconscious, which make changes to your behavior, which make changes to your outcomes. All that said, text me so you're in my community. My number is 305-384-6894. It's down below in the description to this episode. Also, Work on Your Game University. That link is also down below. It's all 4 my coaching programs. You want to work with me directly, we have different levels of programs, different options for everybody. If you just go to workonyourgameuniversity.com, that link is down below in the description. And there you can see everything our program is about, everything we're doing, some feedback from people who we have worked with and are currently working with, and you can get yourself started right there on the spot. Work on your game. Dre, all